Certainly our conversation on facilities in the community has quite a history that actually predated my time in Forest Lake, but when I came in and was interviewed for the city administrator position back in 2011, one of the presentations that the council actually had the candidates do was, how are you going to build a new municipal facility to meet our long-term facility needs? The concept of doing it at the Northland Mall had been discussed and initially evaluated upon my arrival, but there are a number of different facility studies that date back to many years, up to 10 years prior to 2011. In August of 2012, there was a pretty important meeting in which a number of members of our council and EDA met and evaluated a range of options, anything from doing nothing to renovating the existing City Hall site and fire station to pursuing the redevelopment of the Northland Mall site with an integrated facility, which is what we ultimately ended up doing, to looking at a City Hall police facility on the property owned in the Headwaters area by the city. And so those options were evaluated and discussed. As that moved forward, and certainly the community conversation over project costs and financing started to happen, and we had a number of meetings that were very well attended to provide feedback, and certainly a lot of different perspectives, anywhere ranging from proceed with the project to let's take a break, let's consider a referendum. And ultimately, after between that August and December of 2012, the City Council voted to proceed with the project that we have here today, as well as the overall financing plan, which involved the issuance of about $21 million of EDA lease revenue bonds. Obviously today, here we are with a redeveloped Northland Mall site, a police presence on this site, a fire presence, and then building, zoning, administration, finance all working together here. After the financing was issued in December of 2012, our next steps were to retain an architect, and we went through and did a request for proposals, ended up selecting Leo A. Daly, who did the design on the project, and then about a month later we selected Kraus Anderson to serve as our construction manager. Once we had that, construction documents were finalized by the architect. The construction manager put those into bids, and we received our bids in October of 2013. Did a groundbreaking on the site, actually with some fanfare with police vehicles, fire vehicles, members of the EDA and City Council, had some presentations, and then turned some dirt, and then it was off from there.
This is, I think, as the crowd reflects, this is a significant day for Forest Lake. It's significant in that it's going to provide us a more highly functioning, streamlined, and synergistic operation as a city with our police, fire, and public safety and administration. But it represents the decision of the leadership of the city to take a significant step forward towards a future that we choose, as opposed to incremental steps from the status quo. And I think that's a new and good change for the city. The future that we choose is one where this will be a significant hub of the city, not only the government center, but also we anticipate future private development surrounding this area, and also being able to take a lot of properties that are currently owned by the city throughout town and have them go back into private redevelopment.
Didn't see immediate construction on the site because a lot of the building is precast panels. There's a lead time on those, but the footings and foundations started to get installed in October, November, and then some site work started, and then you really saw the action start to happen right around January of 2014, where the panels started coming up, the building started getting enclosed, and really started to take shape. we had a very early cold and then very significant cold throughout the winter. And I think it was January where we had 16 lost days of work just related to cold. And the threshold was if it was -5 degrees at 5 in the morning, they didn't work. And at that time, there was still no interior heat in the building. They were in a position where they were doing a lot of outside work, placing the walls and doing some of that kind of stuff. So it did become a very significant factor. We lost some time. They were able to pick up some time, but the wet spring was actually very challenging because that was the phase where a lot of the utility work was starting to come in. A lot of the earthwork to get the parking lots installed was starting to come in, concrete, and it made for a very difficult set of circumstances to do site improvements. And so that was a challenge definitely for the project. But overall, our contractors did persevere, did end up giving us a good opportunity to get the work done, but it was probably more challenging than what some of our adjacent property owners would have hoped, because it seemed like every time we got the fill material in, got things going and pre-paving, that we'd get a significant amount of precipitation, which would then have to be dried out and farmed out, and really just presented some challenges. There's a lot of thought that goes into a move like this, and in some areas weren't that complicated because we were dealing with new furniture and we were migrated predominantly and got most of our records scanned prior to, and so we were predominantly paperless in some areas, and so that helps. We didn't have to move a lot of file cabinets and make sure records were taken care of that way. Other areas are very, very policy and procedure orientated. You think about police, where they're transitioning evidence from the previous facility to the new facility. There's a lot of protocol and evaluation of the chain of custody of that evidence in order to make sure that it's not inappropriately handled or not handled in a way that's not consistent with their protocol. And so there was a lot of thought that went into that. A lot of thought went into how certain things are placed within the building when we went through and thought about the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and just making sure that operationally things went well. Same thing with fire, making sure that their turnout gear room was placed in a way that allows them to most effectively respond, but at the same time, get their first engine out the quickest they can get it out. And so there's definitely a lot of thought put to that. And so come December, the very first part of December when we moved in, it was an exciting time. We only closed for one day. We closed the former building. We made it a work day for all of our staff where we were moving things back and forth, and that transition ended up being very successful for us. And you know, it was funny because the contractors were moving out and still had things in the lobby as we were moving in, and you kind of start to think, is this really going to be ready? But the team ultimately made it come together, and that was very exciting.
This Forest Lake City Center has been the culmination of over 10 years of careful planning. 3 years ago, we did a significant amount of community surveying and community conversation series, and we got a clear message from the public that they wanted to see upgrades along the Highway 61 corridor. In addition to that, we had ongoing facilities challenges that the city had been facing for a number of years. And so this project represented an opportunity to accomplish a lot of things in one place. We've largely solved the facilities issue that existed ever since the merger of the city and the township, and we have significantly caused the redevelopment of this area. We are pleased that we've got a purchase agreement on the 2 outlots out in front. I'm told that they have now signed leases with the first 2 of their tenants, and so we expect that the construction will begin there in the first opportunity when frost lifts in the spring. In addition to that, we also were able to do a significant amount of water treatment, not only for runoff that happened on this property, but also for the region around this property. And as a result of that, we're reducing over 100 pounds of phosphorus from going into Clear Lake each year, which is a significant inroads in terms of making that a cleaner lake.
Well, it's an honor to be here tonight and speak to you on the completion of your new combined facility here. And on behalf of our entire design team from Leo A. Daly, including Cindy McCleary, Market Sector Leader and Principal in Charge, and many designers who we have with us here tonight, we're honored to see this come to fruition for you. It's your building.
And we had a lot of conversation on how do we share spaces. And those shared spaces, whether it be a shared break room that we didn't have before, a shared fitness area that we didn't have before, provide more opportunities for all of our staff to interact with each other, get to know each other, and collaborate with each other on an informal basis. And that does translate into productivity. It translates into positive, morale. And then when, if a firefighter is upstairs in the fitness room and they're interacting with a police officer and they now have a better relationship, that's going to translate into a better outcome when we're having to work together on scene. We vacated 3 buildings in order to, come here. This former city hall and police station is currently on the market for sale. We also own the Youth Service Bureau that's attached to that, or it's a separate building right in that area. And so those buildings are being marketed right now, and we've had a few people go through, but not a significant amount of action. It is something that's discussed in our strategic plan in terms of what we want to see there, if we want to try to sell it as is and try to maximize the value of the asset, or if we want to try to position it for ultimate redevelopment. And so that's a policy discussion that the EDA and City Council are continuing to have. We have our former South building, or the Township Hall, and that is, the office portion of that is vacated, but we are utilizing the garage space. And so the garage space and the storage shed continues to be utilized by Public Works, who also is in about 3 or 4 different locations between that building, the airport, and then what they call their North Campus. And the Public Works is also assumed, at least in the interim here, use of the former fire station. So they have that set up, and actually that's been an enhancement for them as well. There's some additional indoor heated storage that they didn't previously have, and with the way the fire department on 4th was able to be repurposed, they have some office space and then a common break room and locker room, which they didn't have previously. We're just extremely proud of the building. There's a lot of best practices in here. We actually just this afternoon, Chief Peterson and I gave a tour to the village president, the city administrator, and police chief of Osceola as they go through and are looking at their building. And so not only within the community are we sharing what we've done here, but there's a number of people that are looking to this building to see how you can share spaces, see what was done with the latest use of different technologies and how we position this to be successful in the future. We've had actually a national publication write an article on how we're able to co-locate these uses together. Public Management had an article in their last issue speaking to that, and so it's just, we've had a lot of successes with it, and we're just, again, looking forward to our long-term use in the facility.